I have been learning a lot about leadership really for my whole life, but specifically since 2020. And there is one leadership nugget. If someone handed me a microphone and there was 1,000 people in front of me, we'll call it 100,000. That sounds better. And they said, "What's the one like leadership nugget that always resonates with people that you get that after you say it?" It would be what you're going to hear today from my guest, Tim Spiker. So, Tim, welcome to the show.
That is, man, the pressure is on now, Hampton. So thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here, and we're gonna have to come through now.
Yeah, let's see what you got today. I'm excited. I've had Tim on here before, and a lot of what we'll talk about today, yes, was said previously, but it's going to be just a little bit more tailored and targeted towards what I'm doing here. And this principle really, I talk about faith, family, fitness, fellowship, and future. This I think can play into your faith, certainly fellowship with other people, and definitely your future as well as and your family. Like, I mean, this really applies to like every area of life, whether you're leading others formally or leading yourself, whatever it is. And so I'm excited to dive in. Tim, if there's like a spot that you want to start, we can. But I kind of like the multi-level marketing story that you told last time about kind of how you started getting into this world. If you want to start there.
All right. Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. So I was waiting tables, living in St. Louis, Missouri, getting ready to start grad school. And I had a fellow server. She invited me to an open house for a marketing company. And I'm just going to offer this piece of unsolicited advice to everybody. If anybody ever invites you to an open house to a marketing company, you should ask more questions than I did. But I didn't ask a lot of questions, but I was like, okay, marketing, I'm going to study marketing in grad school. So let's go do it. I got to the event. There was only one seat left in the room. It was in the middle of the room. So I took that seat, and about 3 minutes in, I discovered that I was at a recruiting meeting for a MLM, multi-level marketing organization. And I was like, oh, open house for a marketing company. I get how that is technically accurate, but not at all what I was expecting. So during that meeting, I had a choice. Was I going to kind of shimmy my way out of a very crowded room and kind of make a scene, or was I just going to wait for the break and then kind of quietly exit? And I decided I didn't want to make a scene. And I'm very thankful that that was the choice, because the conversation in that room that night turned to, what does it mean to be an employee? And let me just say that everybody in that room felt like it was a pretty bad idea to be an employee. It was a very negative conversation at that point. What is it like to be led by somebody, essentially? And there was a collective agreement that it sucked. And in that moment, I kind of checked out. I didn't hear anything else really that happened in the presentation. I didn't want to sell water purifiers to my family and friends anyway. So but I was captured in that moment by the negativity in the room. And I didn't go there with an agenda of any kind except to learn something about marketing. And yet there I was, kind of like the whole world kind of slowed down and stopped, and I didn't hear anything else. And I just thought, why is it this way? Why is being led so terrible? Seems to me that it doesn't have to be terrible. I don't know a ton, but that just seems like it doesn't have to be that way. So at the break, I did I did end my night with the event. But as I walked to my car, I was immediately thinking of the people that I could visit with, because I had determined as I sat there, I think the issue is leadership. I think when we follow great leaders, that being led is awesome. And that when we follow crappy leaders, it's crappy. And so then the solution to this problem is leadership. And that launched me off, and now over 20 years ago, way over 20 years ago, that story, into all the research and work that I've done for the rest of my life. And it's crazy to look back on it now, because when I accepted that invitation, I certainly had no clue. I mean, can you imagine if I could have known the subtext from God in that moment, which is, tonight you're going to be launched into your career that you're going to be passionate about for the rest of your life, or at least to this point, for the next 25 years. I would like, what I'm going to sell water purifiers for the next 25 years. Like I couldn't have known, but I feel so thankful to have had that experience that night, and it launched me forward.
unfortunately, the way that people viewed work back then is probably as much, if not more relevant to
Hmm.
today. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, as you know, Tim.
Yes. Yes.
Put a lot of stuff on there, and I get this sense that the vast majority of people on there, they may be posting about like a side hustle, or they've become like a coach on the side or something. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the popular and trendy thing to do there is escape the 9 to 5. Like, man,
Boy, that's good.
I gotta get out of the 9 to 5 because I'm a slave to this 40 hours, if not more, a week. But the bigger thing is probably I have like this boss or manager that tells me what to do, and um, you got to get rid of the rat race, and you don't need a boss. And I get it. If your boss is terrible and if you don't have a good leader, I would want to
That's
escape
right.
too. And by the
That's
grace
right.
of God, I've landed in a place that has a great leader who has a great leader who has a great leader. And that doesn't happen a lot of times. And so
Yeah.
I get why people are saying that, but let's maybe continue the story. What kind of
Yeah.
happens after you have this realization? What kind of work have you been doing?
Yeah, I started interviewing as many leaders as would give me the time of day. And I had some very underdeveloped thoughts about leadership, but I would talk with them and I would learn from them. And then I would ask them, who else should I talk to? And they were very gracious and they would give me 2 or 3 names. Then I'd call that person up and say, hey, you don't know me, but Billy said I should give you a call. And they're like, oh, yeah, Billy's great. And then I would meet with that person. I just kept doing that till I ended up in a leadership consulting position with a firm probably 15 years before I thought I would ever have the opportunity to do something like that. And at that firm, we stumbled into some research. We were bringing people up onto the west side of Pikes Peak here in the U.S., central U.S., Colorado, and we were putting them through a number of different assessments through that leadership development retreat that we had. And we ended up having enough data to answer some questions that our clients were asking. Kind of what's the magic mix of personality, natural ability, that those two things that could lead to more effective leadership. And so that gave us data to run and look for those connection points. And in the end, there was no connection. There was no personality type that made you a better leader. There was no natural ability that made you a better leader. There was no combination of those two things that made you a better leader. And there wasn't even a combination of any of those things that made you better at like a specific aspect of leadership. There just was no correlation. But my colleague, Vanessa Kiley, in an act of desperation, turned to the SPSS software and said, fine, you're not showing me anything where I'm looking. So, okay, great, smart, statistical computer program, you go look for correlations anywhere you can find them. And it came back and said, you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking at personality, doesn't matter. You're looking at natural ability, doesn't matter. Not natural leadership ability, but natural abilities in a more general sense. For example, just to clarify that, for some people, you can show them a list of numbers and they'll, if it's more than 3, they can't remember it. Other people, you show them a list of numbers and they can remember 15. That ability to remember a line of numbers like that would be the kind of natural ability that this test assessed. So there was nothing connected to those things. But in our leadership assessment, it said, you're measuring 8 things on leadership. 2 of them are way more important than the other 6 combined. And that is not an outcome we were even thinking about. We weren't looking for it, but that's the beauty of statistical analysis. It can show you stuff that you weren't suspecting was there. And that has created the big revelation for my work and what I've kind of dedicated my professional life to since I saw that research.
So now that we're on the edge of our seats and we're wondering, okay, what are the 2?
Yeah, what are the 2?
I may put you on the spot, and maybe you can't list all 8. You probably can, but like maybe give the audience a chance to kind of guess.
Yeah,
as
let's
you
do
list
it.
them out, and then we'll get into it.
Absolutely. Okay, so here are the 8. 2 of the should we give the number? Let's go ahead and give the number. 2 of these are worth 77% of leadership. The other 6 combined are worth the remaining 23. So you're looking for 2 that when you add them together is accounts for more than 3/4 of leadership effectiveness.
Yeah. If you look at a pizza, I like that.
There we go.
Like if you're looking at a pizza, 2 of the 8 slices make up, 3/4 of the slice.
Yeah. Those are some big slices of pizza.
Big slice.
Those would be the slices my 14-year-old would go after for sure. So, all right. So let me give you the 8, and you're going to decide which 2. So, set direction, think strategically, align resources, motivate and inspire, others focused, execute and follow through, inwardly sound, and develop talent.
All right, lock in your answer. Everyone say it as you're driving to work in the morning.
There
What's
we
your
go.
answer?
Yep.
What before you say what it is,
Yeah.
if you've done this before, are there like some common answers that you might
There is.
get?
There is one
Okay.
answer that is most common by a long shot.
What is it?
Motivate and inspire.
I kind of thought you were.
Everybody seems to understand that we need some wind in the sails or gas in the tank, or pick whatever mode of transportation analogy you like. There's probably another one that you can go with. Everybody gets that we need the energy to go do something. What we don't quite understand is intuitively is where that energy comes from. And so now I have revealed that motivate and inspire is not one of the 2.
Okay. Well, I can't wait any longer. You got to tell us. You got to tell.
All right. The 2 are inwardly sound and others focused. Inwardly sound and others focused.
I love it. I've said that 100 times over the last year and a half, ever since you taught me that. Inwardly sound and others focused. Okay. I know you could talk about this for hours, and there's a lot of directions I want to go, but like, what do those mean?
Well, so when we talk about being inwardly sound, we can go through kind of a laundry list of things. Let me just give a little flavor. I'll go fast here, but it's more just for kind of the general sense. So am I secure and settled as a person? So just think of that as being the opposite of being insecure, where we've got lots of self-doubt and questions about whether or not we belong and all the things that come attached to that. Being self-aware is another part of being inwardly sound. Being a principled person is also part of being inwardly sound. Being holistically healthy. Do I have healthy practices in my life? Physically, financially, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, mentally. Being a person who is purposeful, that is to say that I have a clarity about how I'm investing my life. And that clarity is not only where I'm going, but how I'm going. And not only in what I want to do, but the values that I want to live by as I get there. And then an additional piece of being inwardly sound has to do with emotional maturity. And so I don't expect anybody's going to remember all of that, but hopefully that gives you a flavor of being inwardly sound. Is I'm a stable, sound person. I'm kind of like a port in a storm, or that lighthouse that provides clarity no matter what's going on, no matter how bad it gets. I can be counted on to be sane and stable and solid within myself, so that I have something to give to others. And so that's what I would say about inwardly sound. Before we go over to others focused, anything you want to say about that, Hampton?
I remember last time I asked you about these, and you said that you usually start with others focused because that one is easier to explain and practice. Sometimes inwardly sound might be like, you could go all the way back to your upbringing and how you were
100%,
parented, and like,
100%.
That one's pretty deep.
Yeah, it is. And so the others focused side is easy. We do begin with our clients. We begin our work on the others focused side of things because it's a little more accessible. Once we get going, then we'll get into the inwardly sound stuff. So that's your memory is good. Others focused. So when we talk about being others focused, we talk about being attentive, curious, empathic, humble. Agapon, which is a Greek word, the definition that we use for that is service to and care for others. That is selfless, consistent, and unconditional. Some people might call that servant leadership. But we use the Greek because English language is a little bit limited when it comes to the word love, and that's the technical translation of that word. But agapon says so much more about what we actually mean, so we actually use the Greek. And then again, emotionally mature. It shows up again. It's the only one that shows up on both sides of inwardly sound and others focused. And so, if you want a visual, I've started doing this just in the last month. And the reaction that I've gotten from folks who I've been interacting with has been so positive. So let me just share real quickly, just a brief visual on others focused. Those things that I just read, I want you to think of them like a stair step where one leads to and helps support the other. So if we start off with being attentive, being fully present with others, that will give greater, that will enable us to be more curious with others because we're there. I'm actually here. I'm actually listening. I'm actually engaged. Obviously, our world can be very distracting, so that's important. But then when I'm curious, that actually opens the doorway for me to have more empathy with people. It's really difficult to empathize with people who are, we're not inside their body, their mind, their soul. If we're not curious about how they're experiencing the world, it's tough to empathize with them. So attentiveness enables curiosity, and curiosity helps to enable being more empathic. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only thing that attentiveness does. It does some very practical things in leadership, but if we think about the build here, that there's an enablement piece. So attentive, now we're going up the stairs. First stair is attentive, second stair is curious, third stair is empathic. Curiosity and empathy are actually really important parts of being humble. And I say that because curiosity at its base says, I don't know everything. Empathy, being empathic, says, I'm not the only person that matters. And those are both key aspects of being a humble person. I don't know everything, and more than just me matters here. Those are two of the four building blocks of humility. So you can consider humility the next stair up. So now curiosity and empathic are enabling humility. And you think about all four of these things, and now I get to this idea of agapone. Agapone, at one level, somebody might say it's empathy in action. Somebody else might call it compassion, but it is to say that I am in the business of serving the people that I lead and caring about them at a deep level, whether they deserve it or not. And that's the real kicker, because it's not dependent on them. But this stair step idea, you got a lot of organizations that are very famous around servant leadership, whether it's Southwest Airline, Synovus Financial, Chick-fil-A, all of those types of organizations. I think it's great to point at the concept of servant leadership because I think it's incredibly powerful on a multitude of levels. But I think there's still a question of, how do I become a leader who serves? How do I get to that spot? Do I just look at service and go straight for it? Sometimes that can feel a little bit tough to figure out. I would suggest that we build these building blocks here of attentive, curious, empathic, and humble. That's the pathway that helps me build to become a leader who serves, to become somebody who is agapone. So that's the others focus side of things.
I love the stair step. I'm glad that you've been using that visual right there, because being a servant leader, I feel like that gets thrown around a lot, but we don't wake up wired every morning to just be a servant leader. There's a lot that goes into that. It's like anybody can be a servant leader once, but like in order to do that over a long period of time, I feel like some of the things you're mentioning are what leads to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's our hope. Our hope is that we help people become all of these things we're talking about. Not just, I don't want to help. I joke with our clients, like, I'm not interested in you learning anything. Be like, wait a second.
Yeah.
What? It's like, no, I am interested in helping you become something, which isn't to say you don't have it already, but how about I'm helping you become the most attentive, the most curious, the most empathic, the most humble, the most agapone. That's what I want to help you do. That's what we as an organization want to help you do. We don't want to help you just kind of cognitively understand these things. That doesn't create a bunch of value for folks. Becoming, that's where the value happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking forward to what I'm about to say. And even though you've spent over 2 decades learning about this and pouring your life into it, I'm going to steal the thesis and punchline because I can't not do it.
Do it.
Everyone listening to this, if you're an ambitious young professional that wants to learn to lead yourself, a lot of the people listening to this are not formally leading people. Maybe you're married, maybe you have a kid. Like, obviously this matters at home as well, at work. Maybe you have a team, but I know a lot of people are younger in their careers. They're trying to figure out life. Maybe they want the next promotion or whatever it is. But the most exciting thing about this, and tell me if I miss it, Tim, but this is what I get out of it, is 77% of leadership is about who you are, not what you do. And it's about being inwardly sound and others focused. And if we look at the other 8 qualities about motivating and inspiring and recruiting top talent and marshaling resources. It's kind of hard to do those things when you don't have the formal responsibility, but that's okay because the most important part about leadership is something that you can start doing in middle school. Like this is something that you can learn right now.
Yes.
And that will take care of all of your big ambitions moving forward. So what do you have to say to the person that's 23, 24, 25 years old that wants the big role and everything?
Yeah.
If they can just learn this, I feel like they're going to be on the right path.
No, you're 100% accurate in this, and it's one of the amazing ironies of what this research uncovered, and that is you do not need an army of people following you to work on becoming more inwardly sound and others focused. We were unpacking some of those ideas. Just take self-awareness. There are like more really wonderful, incredible surveys out. Not surveys, I shouldn't say that. Assessments is what I mean to say. There are an amazing number of assessments. And if you're really earlier in your career and you haven't had exposure, whether it be Colby or Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or Working Genius, so there's so many of them that are really, Working Genius? Was it the Working Genius?
I like all of them, but I'm a big Working Genius guy.
Yeah. Anyways. And we are too. It's had a big impact on our company. Working Genius has.
Awesome.
Well, now, are there more ways to become self-aware than taking an assessment? Of course. We have clients and we help them walk through this process, but I'm going to tell you something that people pay us to tell them, which is find 5 people over the course of 5 weeks, tell them in advance what you want to talk with them about, take them to lunch, and then listen to them and ask them follow-up questions. And here's what you're going to ask them. Effectively, what is it like to be around me? What is it like to be on the other side of me? What are the things that I do well that create a lot of value? And this doesn't have to be in the marketplace. This could be at home. What are the things that I do that are valuable to you that I should make sure that I keep doing? What are the things that I do on a regular basis that create problems? What are the things that I do on a regular basis? If my wife or my kids were on this right now, they could answer these questions. And if we're not going to shoot the messenger and we're going to be genuinely thankful for what they share with us, becoming more self-aware can be as simple as letting people know in advance that you want to hear their perspective on what you do well and what you do poorly and what you should start doing and what you could stop doing, and just have a heartfelt conversation with no defensiveness, by the way. No defensiveness, just curiosity on my part. Now you're playing ball in the space of self-awareness. And so you do not need anybody reporting you to have those conversations. And so on the inwardly, that's on the inwardly sound side. On the others focus side, I list a lot of things. You want to work on being attentive? Find the off button on your phone. I'll just throw it out there as an idea. Like, it doesn't have to stay off all the time. But maybe, by the way, we've had to go to a box in our kitchen. So we're now using apps to track the amount of time that we don't have our phones out and available. So it's called RO, and it's actually a thing. Yeah, we just bought one.
Oh, nice.
And so
I had Joey Odom on this podcast, the founder.
Did you really? How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Well,
I met him on LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah, of course you did. Well, I missed that episode, but this probably means that we're not able to handle it ourselves. So Joey and his company, they're helping us out. But can I work on being attentive without having 1 million people report to me? Of course I can. Can I work on being curious? Like, this is one of my favorite. Everybody, I've yet to meet somebody that says I don't need to be more curious. Every person seems to agree with this one. And so that means that we go beyond intellectual curiosity. There's tons of articles about leadership and intellectual curiosity, and they're all fine. But what they miss is being curious about people, about their perspectives, about their emotions. So we can go through all those things we talked about on the stair step. Those are all accessible to work on, whether you have followers or not. So this is the amazing opportunity for folks who are earlier in their careers, in their lives, in their families to say, I can work on what is 77% of leadership without having a single follower. And so,
fire me up. Come on.
And so you'll be more ready when you do have followers. Like, look, I think probably by and large as leaders at some level, we're going to screw up the people we're leading no matter how hard we try. We're going to make mistakes. let's just minimize that and let's go ahead and get ready for those leadership positions that we're going to be. Don't wait to work on these two things. It's 77% of leadership. It's the majority of leadership. It makes everything else that you do as a leader, whether it has to do with strategy or execution, all of those things are fueled and funded by how inwardly sound and others focused you are. So let's work on the foundation, because you don't need followers to work on the foundation. You can work on the most important stuff right now with 0 followers.
Preach, fire me up. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I may ask you one more question, because I know not everyone. There's people that are a little bit older in their careers, like my dad and some of the people he works with. What's up, Jeff? I know you're a big fan of Tim, so he's waving as he's listening to this
Hi,
for the
Jeff.
first time.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah,
Yes.
but think about, or what I'm thinking about is, a lot of the clients you're working with might be way later in their careers. They're executives. Do you get the joy of seeing light bulbs go off as people that are way into their careers and have all this influence start learning this?
There are some assumptions around how people can grow and develop at the core of who they are later on. And some of the most important research around that was done by Cheryl Armand and Theo Dawson. And they found that while, yes, there are some barriers, it's a little more difficult the further you get on in your life. We have to be very careful, because if we say you can't learn later on in life, then we're saying something that's not true. Mm-hmm. You can grow and develop. It's a question about how open are you to it? Are you going to willing to put in the work? So the way I normally say that, it's not even later in life. And I'm talking about above the age of 50, above the age of 55, even. Like, we work with many people that are further on in their career. It's not a matter of can or can't. It's a matter of will or won't. And it does get tougher later on, but just because the road gets a little steeper doesn't mean you can't go up that hill. And so there is joy in getting to see people in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, sometimes even in their 60s. And that's been an amazing conversation where somebody's in their 60s and they're saying, this reality, it's been here all along, and I didn't consciously, but now even now at 62, I'm going to start applying this, and they use it. And again, it all goes back to them, because the truth is the truth. I didn't invent the truth. I'm a reporter. So there's nothing, I haven't invented anything here. The real joy moment, the real value creation moment is when people do the hard work. I can talk till I'm blue in the face. You know what value it creates if people don't do anything? 0. Doesn't do anything. But when I watch people say, okay, I'm going to apply this now, and they pursue the things we've been talking about. I'm going to pursue being more empathic. I'm going to pursue being more self-aware, go down the line. And then they do, and then they become, and then things happen better and differently for them. It's a real joy to see this. This can happen at any age. But the truth is also, we are a little more malleable when we're younger, so it's better to start on it now.
Yes, start right now. Well, it's time for us to wrap up, unfortunately, because there's a lot more I could talk about. Can you tell us what your book is called? And I'll put the link to it below, because I want people to get it.
Thank you, Hampton. Yeah, The Only Leaders Worth Following. The Only Leaders Worth Following. That's the book. Amazon, of course, and anywhere else, but usually it's Amazon for most people. So would love for you to pick up a copy and engage with it and reach out. I mean, this is fun. I get folks reaching out via LinkedIn and other ways, and this is the joy of the work that I get to do. So I'm happy to engage with folks as they take a look at it.
Awesome. Well, I know this principle we learned today is one that I will be sharing for years to come and applying as well. So thank you as always.
Yes.
You know, the title of this is Wake Up and Lead. I think a lot of people, they don't do the work. You know, you said, now you know it. I'm the reporter. Now it's time to do the work. We need to wake up and do the work. So I need you to tell that to everyone. So with that said, it's time for you and me
to wake up and lead.
Yes.